Good evening, Los Angeles, and thank you for joining us for the end of the week wrap-up as we talk about what's happened here in this city and in the Los Angeles region with our fight against COVID-19. As we head into the weekend, I want to remind everybody to be cognizant and embrace the 3 C's. We need to avoid each one of them: crowded spaces, confined places, and close contact. This really is our strongest weapons of maintaining our physical distance, wearing our masks, cleaning our hands and surfaces, and staying at home, but thinking through those places and spaces where it's just too crowded, too confined, or where you will have close contact. And we're not back to a safer at home order, but we all need to do our part to minimize the spread of COVID-19. On this, a day in which the United States had a record number of new cases at more than 60,000 Americans who were positively diagnosed with COVID-19. We know that here in this country, that's a little bit over 4% of the world's population, we have a quarter of the diagnosed cases and a quarter of the deaths worldwide. This threat is real, this threat is growing, and I'm proud of how Angelenos are meeting this challenge. And I want to walk you through that with some important announcements tonight. Socializing and gathering with folks who are not part of your household is still something that is not permitted. And I can't emphasize this enough, that gatherings large and small are a major source of spread. And even though we know it's going to be very hot this weekend, it's not a green light for a pool party or a barbecue. Please don't do that. Build on the good work of this past week and make sure that we continue to do everything we can to stop the spread. It's better to be at home. I know this can be frustrating. I know it's been a long, long time. And I know that we feel like there will never be an end to this. But we do know that there are lives at stake every single decision and every single day. And so everything that we do can take a life, but everything we do positively can save a life. We want you to know that not everyone has access to staying cool at home this weekend. And so I wanted to announce tonight that for seniors and people with serious health conditions, we know that this heat this weekend can pose serious threats, which is why in partnership with LA County, we will have cooling centers available for the public in the Valley, Canoga Senior Center, and Sherman Oaks East Valley Adult Center, as well as in South LA at the Slauson Multipurpose Center. And you can find the locations of each of these at emergency.lacity.org/heat. The centers will be open this weekend on Saturday and Sunday from 12 to 7 each day. And everyone who comes will be screened, required to wear a face mask, and must follow strict physical distancing orders. But these will be places of refuge for those who would be endangered by this heat, but still need to stay safe from COVID-19. Again, these centers are only for people who would be at a health risk staying at home during this pandemic and this heat wave. So don't misread our abundance of caution. Please do not go outside, gather with others, and put lives at risk. What we do now to avoid gatherings and put on masks will pay dividends for all of us down the road. And even in the short term, we're beginning to see some hopeful signs, even as we still see dangerous ones amongst us. If we make the right decisions, today we'll move closer to getting this virus under control again. And we'll be able to safely reopen things like our businesses and schools sooner, keep our economy going, and save lives and livelihoods. We need both individuals and businesses to act as part of this. So especially to our business leaders, we need you to continue doing the work of making sure your clients, your customers, and of course, your employees are safe. So let me speak to business owners for a moment. Thank you to the vast majority of businesses. I shared with you a couple days ago that just 2 weeks ago, county inspectors were finding as much as 50% non-compliance, whereas that compliance has gone up to 90 to 98%. And all the protocols which are there for your safety and for all of our safety are easily found at coronavirus.lacity.org/business. We know that there are still, though, some businesses that are not following these protocols, and that's risking spreading the virus and preventing other businesses from opening or staying open. As part of our general enforcement work, the City of Los Angeles inspectors went to 539 businesses yesterday, and we found 97% compliance. That's good news. And to those 3%, we need 100% compliance. In the last 2 weeks, we've also received complaints through 311 and our helplines, 288 complaints about non-compliant businesses not following the public health rules necessary under this COVID-19 crisis. These complaints are then referred to the city attorney, and I would encourage folks to please let us know. We can send city inspectors out and fine businesses, but it's easier if we know where we've seen non-compliance and we can help people comply. Again, we educate, we encourage before we enforce. So please call us and help us help all of us with this crisis at 311 or at coronavirus.lacity.org/violation. The city has then called these businesses to remind them to follow the rules, and if necessary, city workers conduct additional in-person visits. We're taking COVID-19 as seriously today as we did on day one, and we need businesses to as well. Today's COVID infection threat level remains at orange. That means the risk is high, and you should assume that everyone is infectious. Continue to stay at home as often as you can, telecommute if you can, and participate only in essential activities. A move to red is bad news. It indicates that things have worsened and will likely return to a mandated safer-at-home order. We're even seeing this in cities across the country that are talking about this tonight. But if we're successfully flattening the curve, we could return to yellow. As always, track the status of where we're at to inform what you can do and should do at coronavirus.lacity.org/threat level. And these threat levels aren't arbitrarily set. They are based on the data and the science, which we look at carefully all the time. 6 of the 7 main indicators are still headed not in the right direction. But we do have some good news to report. A week ago, our infection rate was 1.26, meaning the average person infected another 1.26 people. Today, the county estimates that's down to 1.01, almost under that magical threshold of less than 1. So keep that work coming that you've shown this past week to be able to press that curve back down as we have done successfully before. But we know that the virus is still spreading. If we can keep that number, get that number, under 1 and keep it there, then we'll see the prevalence of the virus decline and see improved case numbers. Along those lines, let me share today's case numbers. The county shared that today, 2,667 new infections of COVID-19 were recorded, and 834 of those were in the city of Los Angeles. That brings the county total to 127,358 cases, and a slight reduction in the overall number of cases this week from last week. The county also tragically recorded 51 deaths. These deaths have started to go up, as I mentioned. It's a lagging indicator. So the 2 or 3 weeks ago burst in cases is now also being reflected in increases in deaths. In fact, this week, the 281 tragic deaths in our county, 281 friends, colleagues, neighbors, that level we haven't seen in 5 weeks, where it was also 281. Of the deaths, of the 51 deaths that were recorded today, 32 of those were people over 65, 14 were between 41 and 65, and 3 were between 18 and 40. A sobering reminder that COVID-19 can kill you regardless of your age. And as a reminder, just a few weeks ago, 30% of new cases were 18 to 40-year-olds, and now that number is at 50%. So my plea is to our younger Angelenos between 18 and 40 to continue to do your part. So many of you are, but we've seen a dangerous rise in numbers there, and nobody is invincible. This virus can kill anybody, even without pre-existing health conditions and under 65. Hospitalizations have been climbing, but new admissions have been increasing at a steadier rate. It had risen as high as 2,032 this week. Tonight, it's down again slightly to 1,995 patients, 26% of which are in the ICU and 17% on ventilators. Across the county in our general emergency hospitals, there are currently 405 available beds, including 292 acute care beds and 113 ICU beds. We've had those numbers be as high as 1,000 available beds. Today, it's 405. But ventilator supply remains strong and steady with an available inventory of 1,148 available ventilators. Together with the Department of Public Health and the Department of Health Services, we continue to closely monitor our surge capacity of all bed types and have confidence in the next few weeks that we can surge if necessary, but I hope you will do the work with me to make sure we don't have to surge because of the good work we are doing. The percentage of tests that are coming back in Los Angeles right now positive is about 9.3%, which is above where we were in late May at 8%. It's not as dramatic as we're seeing in other places where it's as high as 28 and 35% in cities like Phoenix and Miami. But any trend up is always something we watch carefully. And the 7-day average of new positive tests is about 10% positive, slightly down from earlier this week when it was 11%, but nevertheless higher than where we want it to be. Today at city and county testing sites, we tested 20,000 people. This week we set records for the most tests we've ever done, and over the course of this week we will test more than 110,000 people. There's no question there's been surging demand. All tests are booked up for tomorrow. Sundays are always off, but we will be adding tests tonight for Monday. And I want to walk through what we are doing to make sure that people still have access to testing, which is an important weapon in this fight. At city sites, to continue to quickly meet the demand, I'm proud to announce that next week we will add 18,000 additional tests, which is a 25% increase. Remember, I shared with you just 2 days ago we had increased a week ago by almost 50%. This is another 25%. And this is partly made possible by the reopening of the West LA site at our Veterans Administration. That will open next Friday. And we hit another important milestone too. The city and the county together have now tested more than 1 million people through our drive-through and walk-up testing sites, in addition to as much as 500,000 more tests that have been done through clinics and done through providers as well. But I'll reiterate, if we want to keep this up, we need more direct federal help. And I join mayors and governors across this country asking for national leadership to help us. We shouldn't have to stand up our own testing. We shouldn't have to pay for our own testing. We need your help. We need your direct help, whether it's the supply chain, whether it's laboratories, or whether it's the direct financial assistance. And we're fighting for that in the next coronavirus relief bill. Several months ago, I enacted an emergency order requiring all skilled nursing facilities in the city of Los Angeles to offer testing, and where they couldn't, we filled the void. We were the first big city in America to do that, and the first big city in America to check off that list at 135 skilled nursing facilities across our city. I'm convinced it's one of the reasons we saw deaths come down and some of our mortality rates come down, because so many of our senior citizens living in those facilities most at risk were dying. I'm proud that we today have received confirmation that 133 of 135, and we're going to get those last two, have done their second round as well, nearly 100% compliance. Today we also added a community pop-up testing site in South LA on Central Avenue at 59th Street. This is a temporary walk-up site for community members and local workers who work in some of the factories there to get tested without appointments. And more than 400 tests were offered today, and we're going to keep popping those up any place the county shows us that there's been surges or outbreaks in COVID-19 across the city. And in our public housing developments, we've already brought pop-up testing to nearly 1,100 people in 3 different sites, and we're well on our way to offering comprehensive testing at every single public housing development in the city of Los Angeles for every one of those residents who wants one. The guidance on who should get tested is clear. If you think you've been exposed to COVID-19, go get tested. The city is still testing anyone with or without symptoms, but tests should be prioritized for people who have symptoms, who believe they've been exposed, or who are essential workers or work in a high-risk environment. I said it, and I know it picked up some headlines, but I'll say it again. A test is not a passport to party. It's not an excuse to go out. It is not something you do after you broke the rules. If you get tested, you still need to wear a mask the next hour because you could get infected, and please avoid gatherings with people outside your household. It's as simple as that. And you can also, I'd like to remind you, get a test from your doctor. If you have any symptoms, and it is by law asymptomatic as well, that you are allowed to have tests, and we encourage you to do that through your own providers, where then if you do come back with a positive test, they can best serve your health as they do year-round. CVS and community centers also have sites, as well as new state sites that have popped up, to find any of the nearly 100 sites now available to help you get a test. please go to coronavirus.lacity.org/testing. And if you don't have access to the internet, just call us at 311 and we'll set it up for you. From day one of this crisis, this city has not rested in serving you and providing you with the services you depend on and on mitigating the suffering that people are feeling because of this economic downturn. It's why we modified our parking enforcement regulations. We offered a moratorium on evictions. We launched a microloan program to help small businesses, which I look forward to growing and expanding with grants soon. And that's why we are also launching the largest rent assistance program in the country. Along with my colleagues, the City Council, led by our City Council President, Nuri Martinez, we will roll out on Monday the rent assistance program of $100 million that will go directly to landlords and directly help our renters. It provides $2,000 to our hardest hit households. It gives financial relief not only to those who rent, but those who rent to them. Eligible tenants have to just do three things: live in the city of LA, show the financial impact that COVID-19 has had on them, and earn less than 80% of the average income, the area median income we call it, in Los Angeles City. That's different if you're single or if you're with a family of 2 or 3 or 4, but for your average family of 4, it's $83,500, and everybody can apply. It doesn't matter whether you're a citizen or a non-citizen, doesn't matter what your status is, everybody can apply. So applications open this Monday, and we're anticipating, obviously, because of the suffering that's out there, a lot of people will apply. I want to let people know it doesn't matter if you're first. You just have to apply sometime next week. It starts at 8 a.m. on Monday, and it remains open till Friday/Saturday night at midnight. So Friday night at midnight, as it becomes Saturday, that's when the applications stop. You can go to HCIDLA, that's HCIDLA.lacity.org on Monday to apply. And you can check out this weekend the frequently asked questions there, or call us at 844-944-1868, 1868, between 8 a.m. and 10 p.m. Monday through Friday next week. Again, remember, it's not first come, first served, so don't worry when you apply next week. We want to space out those applications as much as possible. There's also something important I want to talk to you tonight about that you can do to help our city get the resources we need to continue to deliver the services that you depend on, from public transportation to your children's education, to the amount of dollars we have to pave streets and to invest in infrastructure. And that's completing the 2020 census. And I want to share some news with you as well on that. A full and accurate census determines how many members of Congress we have, how much funding we have for critical things, from our school lunches to our public safety programs to housing. And our response rate, unfortunately, is only 52% right now. It is far behind where we were a decade ago, and it's lagging behind California's response rate of 63% and our country's response rate of 62%. Don't lose out. Don't give money to some other part of this country. Get your money and fill out the census forms now. We need everyone to get counted. And you can go online to my2020census.gov, or fill out the form you received in the mail and mail it back, or call in, and you can actually do it over the phone at 844-330-2020. And for immigrant Angelenos who are concerned that the census might somehow take your confidential information and have it shared across government, it is a crime for the Census Bureau to share that with any other agency or department, so don't have any fear. And make sure you are counted too, because the census says everybody counts, including you and your families. The news I want to share with you is to help this critical census effort. Tomorrow, I'm going to be joining our Census Goodwill Ambassadors. These are everyday community members from some of our strongest community organizations that have been going out to help us get that count. But we're adding a little twist, because in addition to census flyers tomorrow, we're going to be putting masks and food bank boxes that are prepared at local nonprofit Urban Partners Los Angeles. And the following weekend, we're going to be canvassing hard to count census tracts and to distribute these masks, help you with COVID-19, get you the resources you need, and provide some nutrition as well. If you'd like to become a Goodwill Ambassador, I want to ask you to join us. Sign up at census.lacity.org to sign up today and to help us help people through this crisis, get the resources they need, and be counted by our federal government. Each week, I try to humanize what this crisis has been about. And I try to share a story with you about a fellow Angelino who we have lost, because numbers begin to become numbing for us, but they must never. These aren't numbers, these are neighbors. Behind each statistic is a story. Behind each data point are people, like John Eric Swing, a friend of mine and a community leader who died June 28th, a devoted husband, father, and son, a powerful advocate in our local Filipino-American community, a dedicated public servant and a United States Marine. He was just 48 years old. Everyone who knew John loved his spirit, his kind heart, the way that he had this mission to try to make the world and his city just a little bit better. We saw that through his commitment as the leader of the Search to Involve Filipino Americans, or SIPA, a core organization in the heart of our city in historic Filipino town that uplifted Asian and Pacific Islander communities as well as all who live here in Los Angeles. We saw it in his assistance for small business owners who are suffering in this moment, budding entrepreneurs who had an idea to change their main street and their neighborhood and city, empowering a whole new cohort of civic leaders. And we saw it right till the very end, as John led his team to meet the demands of a pandemic, to ensure that COVID-19 wouldn't get in the way of delivering critical services to businesses and students and families who relied on them the most. In losing John, we have truly lost an angel in our city of angels. But we will never lose sight, John, of what you gave us and what you represented. We will always reaffirm your commitment to carrying on the legacy of helping others, finding those whose voices we don't hear, whose faces we sometimes don't see, but who are such an important part of the foundation and the lifeblood of our city. We send out light and love to his family tonight, his parents Ellis and Aurora, to his wife Maria, and to the children he leaves behind, Zachary, Joshua, Chloe, and Mackenzie, as well as his stepchildren Sasha and Nico, as well as your sister Karen and brother Peter. Our hearts ache with you. This crisis is hard and it hurts. I know that every single day. I talk to the family members who have lost someone. I talk to the workers who are trying to struggle through this. I talk to folks who just know that living in the gray is like mental torture every single day. But our Angelino spirit is about not just suffering. It is about the spirit of our strength and doing more than we ever thought possible, maybe for a longer period of time than we ever asked for. And it is certain that that strength will get us through this crisis, my friends. I believe in you. I believe in this city. I believe in my family and my neighborhood. I believe in the place that I was born into and that so many of us are either lucky enough to have born into or smart enough to have come to, and that we all call home. This city of angels, which is filled with strength and love, which is fighting for justice and equality every day. And in that fight, I thank you. We will march towards better days together. Thank you, and with that, I'm happy to answer questions. First question, please.
And that comes from the line of Dakota Smith from the LA Times. Please go ahead.
Good evening, Dakota.
Good evening, Mayor. Question about policing. Back when you were president of the City Council, you worked with Mayor Villaraigosa to expand the LAPD by about 800 officers. The City Council recently voted to roll back that initiative by about a third. Why did you push as council president for the LAPD build-up? Was it good for the city? And if it was, does that mean that the council's actions to cut the size of the force are now bad for the city? Thank you.
No, it doesn't. I think some of us remember when we had open warfare on some of our streets, where we had over 1,000 homicides in a year. And I'm proud the work that we did to help, bend that curve and to save thousands of lives by investing not just, by the way, in policing, We expanded and built up things like our gang reduction and youth development intervention and prevention programs, started programs like Summer Night Lights, invested in the backlog of rape kits and in DART teams, which roll out for domestic violence, and SART teams on sexual assault with civilians to help with the transformation of somebody from a victim to a survivor. All of those investments helped save lives and make us safer. It's also a year which is the toughest budget year, and because it's safer, I think that we can, all of us, tighten our belts, stomach some cuts, and also invest now in this urgent moment in recognizing that the next chapter has to be about building on that safety and stopping crime before it starts by making sure that the educational disparities and the racial disparities that we have in our city, that the ways that we've ignored communities of color for too long, things like our schools and communities first ballot initiative statewide that would finally ask for people to pay their fair share in the corporate sector so that our schools aren't starved for social workers and teacher-student ratios that are appropriate. Those are very important investments. So no, I believe that we need to respond to the moments that we're in, whether that's a high crime moment or now a low crime moment that's still filled with too much systemic racism and not enough investments in disparities. I'm proud that Los Angeles has led the way in the past, and I'm committed to making sure we will lead the way throughout the future. Thank you. Next question, please.
And that comes from the line of Laura Nelson from the LA Times. Please go ahead.
Good evening.
Hi, Mayor. Thanks for taking my question.
You bet.
This afternoon, LA Metro bus drivers held a protest in downtown to ask for hazard pay for themselves and other transit workers. They say that their work during the pandemic and their heightened exposure to contracting COVID-19 should be recognized financially.
Yes.
As the new chair of the Metro board, do you support hazard pay for Metro bus drivers?
I'm very sympathetic to that. We are working through, as many people know, we have about $1 billion deficit with a B at LA Metro. We're glad that the first round of CARES Act helped fill some of that in for workers who at the most dangerous moments, and it still is an incredibly dangerous moment, are those essential and frontline workers. So I absolutely am in favor of trying to figure out whether we can afford to do that and helping that. I'm working with Phil Washington, and the board did authorize our management to sit down with our unions and to talk about that and to possibly see if we can meet the moment. I think it's appropriate. These folks are heroes who have been out there, whether it's been a bus driver, whether it's been a firefighter, whether it's been somebody on the front line. These are people who are putting their lives on the line each day. So as Metro Chair, absolutely, I support exploring that, and I hope we can find a resolution that would honor the work of our frontline workers. Thank you. Next question.
Thank you. And that comes from the line of Joel Pollack from Breitbart News. Please.
Hey,
go
Joel.
ahead.
How are you?
Hi, Mr. Mayor. Two questions. First of all, about the violation reporting. There are some criticisms that it sounds like what people in police states used to do in terms of informing on one another. So I was wondering if you could respond to that. And then also, the cases and hospitalizations are rising, but the number of deaths continues to fall, and it's happened for 3 weeks already. And I'm wondering if you could comment on that falling number of deaths despite the rising number of cases.
Absolutely. So for the second question on deaths, we unfortunately did see a rise this week to a level we haven't seen in 5 weeks. We had 5 weeks of declines, and now it jumped back up. I'd have to look at the percentage. It might have been as close to a 20%, 15 to 20%, I think, increase in deaths. And just as we saw cases go up, we saw deaths go up. Cases have gone up even more than the deaths. And I think the feedback we're getting from hospitals is as we have more young people, they are less likely to die. But I remind people they still can die, as the statistics showed today. Don't gamble. Don't take a chance. To younger folks who might engage in behavior that is risky, you can die whether you have pre-existing conditions or not. So the stays are shorter on average, but many stays are long, and too many stays are fatal. And like I said, we're down in the 20s and 30s. Last couple of days, we've been in the 50s again with deaths, and it was 281 cumulative 7-day total we haven't seen, unfortunately, in 5 weeks. As to the first part, no. I mean, the police state is, we enforce things all the time, and we get business complaints for folks long before COVID-19 that are not compliant, whether it's noise complaints, whether it's trash complaints, all the time. That's what we do. That is part of what government in the reddest or bluest places is charged with doing by the people who demand that government provide with services. As I say, we don't go towards enforcement as the first step. To be enforced upon, you have to be very willfully disregarding and or breaking the law. It is first educate, then it is encourage, and then as a last case scenario, it's enforce. But people need to know we will enforce when everybody else is playing by the rules, when everybody else is helping to bend the curve. Those who would endanger our health could kill us, and we're going to take that seriously. Thanks, Joel. Next question.
Thank you. And our last question in queue comes from David Zonizer from the LA Times. Please
Hey, Dave.
go ahead.
Hey. So this is a little bit related to the first question. I'm wondering if high crime was the rationale for boosting the LAPD a decade ago, are you tying crime to LA police staffing numbers? And if so, how much would crime need to increase for you to reverse course on sort of the decrease in staffing?
Sure. There's not a set formula on this, and I've always said, even back then, I think I was on the record saying, it's less important how many people you have in the force than how many deployments you have out there, how many patrols you have, how many hours. For instance, we didn't change the number. In fact, this budget, even before this year, would have reduced the police officer number by 100, but we still were able to expand the kind of community patrols that we heard all communities asking for to be able to make sure that they felt safe. Taking people from behind desk and moving them forward. Technology, for instance, you could have a much smaller, you could have a smaller department as effective if we didn't have people spending 2 hours on filling out reports. So we've invested heavily in technology. And those things can be done without anybody's job being taken away, but by hiring less aggressively in years like this where we add things like technology. So I'm confident that we can keep our city safe. I see the heroism of our police officers every single day. We will always hold anybody, whether they wear a badge or work for the city, accountable. People can't break laws or rules. As we saw this week, there will be accountability for that. But it is really important to us to monitor those things and look at public safety, not always. I think it's been way too simplistic a formula to say X officers leads to this reduction in crime, X officers leads to this increase in crime. When things are safer, you have the flexibility, and we're not returning back to some level way back from a decade ago. We're talking about, I think, reasonable cuts in a very tough budget year where we can still maintain the protection that Angelenos deserve and look at the model to wonder, are we throwing too much on the backs of our police officers? And what can we do when it comes to mental health calls, when it comes to nonviolent crime calls, to share that burden with them as we've done in other areas? So I'm confident about our abilities to continue doing that. And as I've said, it's the time not to pander, but a time to ponder. This is a really ripe moment and an exciting moment for us to co-create our next chapter of public safety. We have a really good foundation of the safest years to date. And in the midst of this still, while we see across the country some homicides go up, and it's gone up here slightly too, we've seen violent crime come down this year, we've seen property crime come down this year. That's the hard work of communities, that's the hard work of police officers, that's the hard work of interventionists, that's the hard work of people preventing crime by engaging and investing in communities. And I want to double down on that work. I think it is a moment that demands it, that we cannot miss. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Yeah, sure, go ahead. No problem.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, so much of this discussion seems to revolve around unrestricted revenue. That,
Yeah.
the activists have been very critical of the idea that more than half of that unrestricted money goes toward the LAPD. And I'm wondering, is there anything inherently bad about having such a large share of that money going toward the LAPD?
Sure. I'm glad you raised the question, because I do respectfully sometimes disagree with the analysis that, to me, a budget is a budget. What we pay collectively in taxes, and by the way, not just to the city, but to the county, the school district, the state, reflects all of our values. So when we look at looking at increasing more in education, that can't just be done through the city, even though we have paid for, and I have dramatically increased our after-school programs that the city's dime pays for, on our campuses. I've raised private money to help us get to a place where community college is free. I've worked with the county on things like homelessness, where mental health and social services, which are county responsibilities, the city is willing to pitch in and help on. When it comes to the general fund, part of the reason the general fund amount has gone up for public safety is because we've wanted to protect the non-police budgets. So for instance, Measure L, something we put on the ballot after the libraries faced cuts in the last economic downturn, we said we don't want to ever do that again. So we wrote into the charter that there are restricted funds for libraries. Our charter also does that with our Recreation and Parks Department. When you do those things to protect those funds from being stolen and being put into other departments, like it could be put into public safety, police, fire, it shows that you uphold those things. You build a wall around library hours and librarians. You build a wall around our Rec and Parks staff and programs because you don't want any future administration or group of leaders to ever be able to take that away because you see those as core values. The flip side is then you have a higher percentage of your general fund. For instance, one of the things that drove that percentage up was that for a long time, we had renters subsidizing the trash pickup of homeowners. Everybody was paying a fee, essentially, when the general fund was subsidizing trash collection that most renters didn't even have in a city that is majority renters. That changed. That was something I worked with Mayor Hahn on, and Mayor Villaraigosa came in to implement. Again, that boosted a percentage up of what unrestricted general fund dollars went to policing, but it didn't necessarily expand the department. Similarly, the number of officers that are there, the number of people that we were paying for that provided protection didn't change, but when folks who were doing security services suddenly became LAPD officers officially, yes, the number of officers went up, but the number of people under employment doing police and security work didn't. So I think it is really important to get under the hood and to understand those things. I absolutely think that that has been a reflection of the protection of human services and non-policing priorities in the city, and it's important to know that history as we look at it. So I'm less interested on one pie chart that takes an arbitrary slice than overall what are we growing, and where are we investing, and where are we pushing for that, not just in the city, but overall as a taxpayer. That's why I'm so behind Schools and Communities First in November, why I've pushed things like Measure HHH and Measure M for transportation. These things put more money into priorities that are wider than just policing, as important as that is. Thanks, Dave. All right, I'm going to go to Spanish now. I don't think we have any Spanish questions now. I want to just thank everybody again, ask everybody to do your part. Remember the 3 C's, and please remember those 4 things of keeping your distance, staying at home, wearing a mask, and cleaning your hands and surfaces. Congratulations on what is a better week, but we've still got a long way to go to be in the right place. Muy buenas tardes, Los Ángeles. Este fin de semana tenemos que evitar espacios cerrados, contacto cercano y lugares llenos. Todos debemos llevar una mascarilla cuando salimos a lugares públicos y debemos lavarnos las manos con frecuencia. Estas son nuestras armas en esta batalla contra el COVID-19. Y todos debemos hacer el esfuerzo para minimizar nuestras actividades en público para frenar el brote. No se permite socializar ni juntarse con otros quienes no viven contigo. Por favor, el reunirse con otros fuera de su hogar es una gran razón por el brote. Y aunque sabemos que hará calor este fin de semana, no es razón para tener una fiesta con piscina o un asado con amigos. Por favor, no hagan esto. Es mejor quedarse en casa, donde puedan estar hidratados y con aire fresco. Y sabemos que no todos tienen aire acondicionado, y este puede ser un riesgo para algunos. Por eso, estamos abriendo centros para refrescarse para personas quienes no podrán sobrevivir el calor en casa. Estarán localizados en el Valle y el sur de Los Ángeles y permanecerán abiertos el sábado y domingo entre las 12 mediodía y las 7. Es obligatorio llevar mascarilla en estos sitios y cumplir con la sana distancia. Por favor, visita la página emergency.lacity.org/heat para más información. Si cumplimos todos con las precauciones ahora, veremos las ganancias en el futuro. Podremos abrir escuelas y nuestra economía y salvar vidas de sus vecinos y su familia. Y estoy agradecido a la mayoría de los negocios que están cumpliendo con los protocolos. Estos se encuentran en la página coronavirus.lacity.org/business. Y nuestros inspectores esta semana han encontrado 97% de los negocios están trabajando a reducir el riesgo y están cumpliendo con estas órdenes. Pero necesitamos 100% de los negocios. Pero hay algunos que no están cumpliendo y esto nos pone en riesgo toda la población y de propagar el virus. Para reclamar un negocio que no está cumpliendo, un empleado, un cliente, por favor, cuando estos negocios no está cumpliendo con los protocolos de salud pública, llame a 311 o visite la página coronavirus.lacity.org/violation. Esta información no es por una penalty, por dinero, por la ciudad. Nosotros usamos educación y tenemos empleados de la ciudad que puedan asistir a estos negocios a cumplir con estas órdenes. Todos los reclamos se refieren a la oficina del fiscal municipal y quisiera agradecer a Mike Feuer por su trabajo en responder a estos reclamos. El nivel de riesgo de infección de hoy es anaranjado. Esto indica que el riesgo es alto y debes asumir que todos alrededor de ti están infectados. Quédate en casa lo más que puedas y solo debes participar en actividades esenciales. Si se vuelve peor, estaremos en el nivel rojo, con el riesgo de infección más alto, muy peligroso, y seguramente regresaremos a una orden para quedarse en casa. Pero si las cosas se mejoran, estaremos en amarillo, indicando que estamos avanzando en aplanar la curva. Siempre visita coronavirus.lacity.org/threat level para monitorear nuestro nivel de riesgo de infección. Aquí están los datos de hoy. Nuestra tasa de infección es 1.01, pero ha bajado del 1.26 la semana pasada, gracias a su trabajo, lo cual indica que estamos frenando el brote con nuestras acciones, pero sigue en propagación. Queremos que este número baje a menos a 1. Hoy el condado nos informó de 2,667 nuevos casos. En total tenemos 127,358 casos. Entre ellos, 834 están en la ciudad de Los Ángeles, llegando a un total de 53,492. El condado también nos informó de 51 fallecidos hoy. Esta semana hubieron 281, el primer aumento semanal que hemos visto en más de un mes. 32 de estos fallecidos eran mayores de 65 años. 14 tenían entre 41 y 64 años. Y 3 tenían entre 18 y 40 años. Lo cual nos recuerda que el COVID-19 lo puede matar sin importar de su edad. Las hospitalizaciones están subiendo también. Hemos llegado a 2,032. En el condado tenemos 405 camas de hospital, mitad del nivel de hace 2 semanas. Entre ellas, 113 son unidades de cuidados intensivos. Tenemos 1,148 respiradores disponibles. Este número es muy fuerte. El porcentaje de pruebas positivas ahora es 9.3, más alto de porcentaje en mayo, cuando estuvimos al 8%. Pero es menos de otras ciudades, como Miami, donde el nivel es más de 30, en Phoenix más de 25. Pero continuaremos a reducir este nivel con sus acciones. Hoy en la ciudad y el condado le hicimos pruebas a 20,000 personas, nuevo récord. Y durante esta semana le habremos hecho la prueba a 110,000. En nuestros sitios de la ciudad agregamos 18,000 pruebas adicionales en esta próxima semana, un aumento de 25%. Esto es en parte posible por la reapertura del sitio en el centro para veteranos en el lado oeste de la ciudad en el viernes próximo. Y logramos hacerle la prueba a más de 1,000,000 de personas. Pero para mantener esto necesitamos más apoyo federal en el próximo paquete de legislación. Esta es la responsabilidad de esta nación, no solamente de una ciudad. Y espero que el Congreso y el presidente muy rápidamente puedan pasar este próximo paquete de legislación. Además, hoy agregamos un punto para pruebas en el sur de Los Ángeles, en la Avenida Central y la calle 59. Este es un sitio temporal para miembros de la comunidad quienes necesitan hacerse la prueba de detección sin hacer una cita. Hoy hicimos más de 400 pruebas en este sitio y continuaremos desplegando estos puntos de prueba por toda la ciudad como se necesita. Si piensa que ha sido expuesto a COVID-19, hágase la prueba. Y aunque seguimos haciendo pruebas para personas asintomáticas, sin síntomas, se debe priorizar las pruebas para personas con síntomas o quienes piensan que han sido expuestos o son trabajadores esenciales en un ambiente de alto riesgo. Una prueba COVID no es un permiso para parrandear, ni una excusa para salir. Si se hace la prueba, necesitas continuar llevando una mascarilla y evitar reuniones con personas fuera de tu hogar. Pueden pedir una prueba en la oficina de su médico o en las farmacias CVS y en sus centros de salud comunitarios. Para encontrar más de 100 sitios de prueba, visita coronavirus.lcity.org/testing o llama 311 si no tienes acceso al Internet. Además, sabemos que el impacto económico es devastador para muchos durante esta crisis. El lunes 13 de julio a las 8 de la mañana se abren las aplicaciones para el Fondo de Alivio de Emergencia para Inquilinos y cierra a las 11:59 de la noche el viernes 17 de julio. Este programa es el más grande en los Estados Unidos y este programa ofrece $2,000 para cubrir la renta para hogares sufriendo. Todos los inquilinos pueden aplicar, no importa su estatus migratorio, no importa. Para aprender más y someter su aplicación, visita la página hcidla.lacity.org o llame a 844-944-1868. Además, les recuerdo que necesitamos que llenen el censo para que podamos continuar recibiendo los recursos necesarios para brindar los programas y servicios críticos como educación, transporte, vivienda y alimentación y seguridad pública. Ahora nuestra tasa de participación está muy baja, el 52%. Si no subimos nuestra participación, va a sufrir nuestra calidad de vida. Necesitamos que todos se hagan contar. Visita my2020census.gov, my2020census.gov. También se puede llenar el formulario que recibieron por correo o por teléfono al 844-330-2020. Y les recuerdo que su información es confidencial y la ley federal prohíbe compartir estos datos con cualquier agencia gubernamental u oficial. Si le interesa servir como un embajador de buena voluntad para el censo, para difundir este mensaje importante, te necesitamos. Y por favor visite la página census.lacity.org para inscribirse. Esta crisis es difícil para todos y mientras este dolor es diferente para cada uno, estamos todos compartiéndolo. El espíritu de esta ciudad, el espíritu angelino, se trata de nuestra fuerza tanto como de nuestra compasión y atención para otros. Y es esa fuerza la que nos ayudará a pasar por esta crisis. Entonces, quédense protegidos, quédense en buena salud y quédense en casa. Mucha fuerza y mucho amor y justicia, Los Ángeles. Gracias. Thanks, everybody. Have a good weekend.